Okay, thank you everyone. So glad to be here. I'm sure you can already hear the passion in our voices. So I would start by asking Shola and Diola to introduce themselves. So Diola, you can go first and then Shola go next.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening. My name is Adela Rochelle. I am a global health advocate and also autism spectrum clinical specialist. But mostly I own a NGO called Matamental, and last year and this year, Matamental has been focused on autism. So we've been pushing autism a lot. For the first time, I came home to Nigeria after 13 and a half years last year to run a medical outreach on a dental medical outreach for children with autism. So I was addressing that aspect of the dental part where children with autism have dental caries, plaque. So we did some dental procedures on them, which is like plaque, scaling and polishing, and the result was really there because we know the struggle that autism itself is not just about the speech and the behavior, but other aspects like the hygiene part of it. So that is me in a nutshell, a global advocate, an autism advocate as well, and a mom to two autistic girls as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Diola, for that awesome introduction. Shola, you're next.
Okay, good evening. My name is Shola Fatoba. So I am a mom of two wonderful autistic kids. I have a daughter who's 11 and my son is 8 years old. I've worked over the past few years in the intersection of health and, access to medicines and environmental health and climate. But I'm also currently at that intersection of health, being a parent of autistic children, founded a telehealth company that supports and connects families with specialists who support families with intervention and diagnosis for autism called Bloombody. So thank you. Great to be here.
Thank you so much, Shola. And then my name is Shola Azazbi. I'm a passionate autism advocate, an author, a children's book author, a documentary film producer. I am an international behavior analyst, and I am also a mom to a beautiful 11-year-old on the autism spectrum. So, welcome everyone. So let's dive right in. I'll start with you, Diola. Can you share like a moment when you realized your parenting journey might look different? Because again, we've all said that we're parents of children with autism, right? So, do you want to take us through your journey? Do you want to, start off with what your journey was like? Early signs. How did you feel in that season?
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. I think to start with, it was a journey I never expected. I didn't see it coming by any means, and so when it came, it caught me unawares. I was shocked. I blamed myself. There was a lot of blaming period, denial period. I was asking a lot of questions. What did I do wrong? Whether before pregnancy, during pregnancy, and after pregnancy. There were a lot of questions that I could not answer. And I was really blaming myself. And at some point, I was even blaming my husband's family, whether it was them. So there was back and forth going on. So irrespective of the fact that one is educated, when it comes to this kind of diagnosis that you didn't prepare for, you become uneducated. Like you just put courtesy out of the window, and because you do not have answers. So it was very frustrating for me to start with. But I realized that a better part of me was, going away, and it was not helping. So I had to come back to the realization that I'm on a pathway that if I keep going on like this, it's not helping. It's not going to help the child. It's not going to help the family. It's not even going to help me myself. Knowing fully well that I'm even a healthcare provider and an advocate. So The journey didn't start well, but I had to come back to myself and face the reality that, okay, now what? The diagnosis has come. What can I do? So it was something, like I said, I never saw it coming. I had nursed, by virtue of my career, I'm a registered nurse. I've nursed a lot of, children, but I didn't see that coming for myself. So I tried to blind it that it cannot be. When you know what the diagnosis, like the signs and symptoms, I'm like, no, it cannot. No, it cannot. This is not it. But the moment I came to the realization that this is it, then that's where the true healing began for us, and even for the family. So it wasn't something that started clear, but immediately we started to, accept it. Then it was getting better. And we're still on the journey of it unfolding.
Okay, great. So I hear you, it's unfolding, and I'm sure that Shola, I'm sure that some of this you share some similarities with this, but can you just take me through quickly how your own journey was with your personal journey with finding the diagnosis, and then how it was for you? What were the first few steps you did in seeking support? How was it for you? Basically, Shola.
I'd say the journey was quite harrowing and very long. Just the journey to getting diagnosis and understanding what was going on with my daughter and then my son eventually. I think for every parent in Nigeria, the journey towards diagnosis is a very, very complicated journey. My husband and I, we felt helpless. We felt very frustrated at times and, very anxious about what the future held, because I remember just a lot of days just crying. First of all, not understanding what was going on with my daughter, not understanding what she was going through, why she wasn't hitting her milestones. That first shock of you just know something is wrong. Our journey started in 2014 when my daughter was born, and by the time she turned 12, we didn't really 12 months. We didn't realize that she didn't know. She could not communicate. She wasn't responding to her name. She was sensitive to noise, food. There were so many symptoms. And when we started seeking help, we must have visited over probably 7 or 8 specialists in Nigeria. First of all, a lot of the doctors were telling us, oh, there's nothing wrong. She's just not hitting her milestones. Some children talk late. But as a parent, you just have that gut feeling that something is wrong. So we kept moving from specialist to specialist. And I'm talking about really good hospitals in Nigeria. We also went to some very top schools, private schools that had, that were autism focused. We met with specialists. And it wasn't until probably our 7th or 8th diagnosis, and we spent a lot of money for each diagnosis that we got. And it wasn't until we reached the Child Development Care Center. I can't remember who referred us there, but we met the late Dr. Yinka Akindayomi, and she was she was a pediatric community pediatrician. I can't remember, development pediatrician, and she was the first that used the DSM-5 criteria to properly diagnose my daughter for autism. It was the first time we started to understand what we were dealing with. What this journey was going to look like. And it was her diagnosis was the only one that eventually, when we went to the US to get further intervention, it was only her diagnosis and her reports that the hospitals in the US actually accepted. But this is after going to several, specialists in Nigeria. And I think what was concerning, and is still concerning to me today, is how few specialists that we have in Nigeria that can actually properly diagnose autism. And so, it was a long journey of self-discovery for our family. Like I said, financial burden, and and just even to call to mind the fact that till today, I believe from numbers I'm seeing, there's probably only 250 trained psychiatrists or registered psychiatrists in Nigeria. I think they said about maybe 200 behavior therapists, and probably about 80 neurologists. So for a population of 220 million, we're talking about the need is really dire. So I'll stop right there, but that was our journey.
Yes, and listening to you talk, and then it's just taking me right back to when we started, on our journey too. I think what was common with all the two stories is, when I got, so my son did meet all the milestones. He met all the milestones before he turned 18. He spoke and did all that, and then he regressed. I remembered when he turned 20, the words were not coming, and then there was a period, like a month or two, that we didn't hear one sound from him, and it was mute. And this was my first child. I was a new mom, and so I didn't understand what was going on. And when he came back to start talking, it was baby babble. It was, cranky. A very happy child became somebody else that I did not recognize, and I did not know where to turn to. And so when they told me they were flagging him down for autism, unlike you, I got my diagnosis in the States, and so it was flagged down, but they told me they couldn't give me an official diagnosis until he turned 3. And there was not so much help, because a lot of times when people say, if you were abroad, you get this service, you get that service. It's not as easy as it's been mounted, because again, they can't just put you in the system. So if you want the services, you pay out of pocket for some services before they put you on the list. So here I am, not knowing where to go. The doctor has told me what's going on, and I remember for a whole year, I was depressed because I didn't know where to turn to or what to do. Because again, a lot of times, people say, because you got your diagnosis abroad, it must have been easy. It wasn't easy for me. Mentally, I didn't find the kind of support I needed as a young mom coming in with, in fact, I remember vividly that my mother actually ordered me back to Nigeria because she was like, you're not doing well mentally, and I don't want to lose my child. So just come first. And for me coming back again here, thinking, okay, you've brought me here, what's going to happen? There was not support, nothing, nobody to talk to, nobody to, just like you said, we don't even have enough. I remember going to the hospital and saying, oh, my child was flagged down for autism, and then they were like, no, your child is okay, there's nothing wrong with it. I'm like, I'm coming from a client that gave me a report. What are you saying, my child? And again, so it was me now arguing. I was like, okay, what's going on? And I think that was what started me off on my journey on my advocacy journey, because again, trying to navigate the system, trying to, sift out the crooks from the actual people that really want to give services, and then pay exorbitant money. Again, like I said, we have similar situation. And then I kept on saying to myself, if me, that I'm in a position of not affluent, that's not the word that I'm looking for, but in a position to be able to, afford some things, to be able to, find out what's going on. What about other people that cannot afford or don't know where to turn to, or don't, so again, it was just a lot for me in my head. And that's what bettered this whole journey for me. And I'm so sure it's a similar journey for how Bloom Body started, right? Do you want to tell us about that, Shola? Because I can see you're nodding your head like, Do you want to tell us about that?
Well, again, for me with Bloom Body, the biggest issue I think as a parent that hit me was the amount of money I spent just to get a diagnosis, number one. Number two, we met a lot of quacks, I would say, along the way, people who claim to be therapists, and we paid a lot of money for intervention, and my child didn't make any progress. And of course, by the time we found real professionals, we had spent quite a bit of money on people who were not really licensed or ethically, allowed to practice in such a very delicate field. And so for me, by the time my daughter was about 5 or 6, I think we started to get a hang of things. I mean, we were referred by the Children's Hospital in Boston back to some behavioral specialists in Nigeria. There was a BCAB that we were working with. She was creating my daughter's interventions. And I realized that we started becoming a resource, my husband and I, for families who were meeting, because we were pretty open about our struggles with friends in our network. And we started having people reach out to us saying, oh, I have a friend whose child may be autistic, or I have a friend who's struggling with this. And it was like we were a yellow book. We were calling people, encouraging them and then giving them contacts to doctors and specialists that we were meeting. Who were licensed. And it was from that point that it hit me one day. I told my husband, I said, why don't we set up something where we can make sure that if parents are going to spend that money to get the support for their kids, that we provide a service where people can actually, we've already vetted these specialists and we have them in one location. Another thing that was important for me in some of my trips to the U.S. with my daughter was parent training was huge. And so for families who could not afford to pay a therapist or a behavior therapist or a speech therapist or for some intervention over time, the clinics will send you to parent groups, sometimes led by parents who were seasoned and had learned. But usually there would be some healthcare practitioner that would support the group, and they would teach parents very basic skills on what you can do on reducing tantrums at home, figuring out the types of food that would work for your child's challenges, or sleep time, just different tips, and I attended some of those. And so one of the things that with Bloom Buddy was, how do I connect parents not just to specialists, but how do we now support parent training? Because in Nigeria, the financial part is a burden. On average, my family, and I'm just going to be open about this, we spend an average of about 600,000 naira a month between my two children for speech and behavior therapy, and we're committed to it, and it drains us. It is not cheap.
It's very draining.
Outside of school fees and outside of all the other medical care and challenges that come with it. And again, how many families can afford that? So parent training for us at Bloom Buddy is something we drive and we push. And thank God, Dr. Adibita is here. It's something that University of Lagos College of Medicine Center for Autism drives as well. That parent awareness, parent training, because for Nigeria, I believe that's the way to go. It's not about getting parents to be paying for services unendingly, because autism is a lifetime condition. But Absolutely. If you empower the parents, you empower the child. So that's sort of how Bloom Buddy started.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying, because I remember that, I started with saying that I'm a behavior analyst, but that's how it started for me, because when I got to, work with different, my son got different people to work with him, and I would be like, this can't be right, and I'm like checking, and I'm seeing that I don't think you're giving the right services, or it's not appropriate, or it's not individualized for him and stuff like that. And so, it got me to start thinking and start training myself to, sift out what is right and what is wrong. And I think when COVID hit was the biggest one for us. So I had to train myself to be able to provide services for my son. And that, I always tell people, yes, COVID was horrible and everything, but for me in my house, it was a fantastic period because it helped me to connect with my child. That period when it was just the two of us, it was just a family in the lockdown, we recorded a bigger progress than he had done with some of those facilitators that were working with him. So by the time we started bringing him up, it made me say, look, I need to train myself first to know what to do and how to, to know the difference between what is right and what is wrong. And then from there, just like you, people come to me and say, oh, what are you, like a resource center. And again, that's where Cradle Lounge started from. That's how I developed myself to become an advocate to, do all of this. And I'm so glad that it happened. Tiola, I was going to come to you with this, because I know that you talked about someone said, Mayawa said she's interested in parents training resources. Okay, Mayawa, we'll get to that soon. We'll definitely get to that soon. So Diola, you had talked about how it was very hard for you with the decisions, when you got the diagnosis. Do you want to tell us some of the hardest decisions you had to make in those early years, and how did you come to trust your instincts as a mother? Tiola?
Yes. So I'm just going to how people think when you're in abroad, everything is all it's perfect. To start with, no system is perfect because my kids were born here. I've lived here long enough. It was not. We're on the waiting list for more than 3 years. Before the government came in. So within that 3 years, actually paying from pocket, and we're being charged every hour. So we started with $100 per hour. It increased to $160 per hour. So, and this was the time where Mrs. Fataba said that financially it was very draining. And that also brought me to that aspect of what I've seen Nigerians here, because we were living in Canada before we moved to California. A lot of Nigerians were hiding. We're seeing a whole lot of, Nigerian kids having autism. And one day, the therapist, we're doing home therapists, the therapist asked a question and she said, Diola, what is wrong with Nigerian government? I said, what do you mean by what is, and the therapist was Canadian, a Caucasian, and she was the 99% of our caseload are Nigerian kids with families of high income, and they are receiving the diagnosis of autism for the first time. These are children that came to Canada within the last 5 years, and they have not been, diagnosed of autism at all, and they are getting that diagnosis at the first time. And what baffles me is that when I see family members, they tend to hide it. Right. And so in my own case, it was very hard to kind of who do I fall back to? Who do I where are my safe space? Because a lot of people were hiding. So I also hide that, okay, this is the reality, right? So the isolation part was was really huge. The financial part, not until after 3 years that, and even when the government stepped into it, it was not a perfect system at all, because you had to juggle your work with the timing that they tell you to bring the kids for therapy is not in alignment with your own. Is a time where you're supposed to be at work, and not all managers will be, you can't excuse all the time that you have to take them out to therapy. Otherwise, you're joking with your job. So it was a whole lot of, we knew that that's the beginning of our life was changing, right? But even as at then, we knew that the priorities, kids and all that. So, yeah, it was, like I said, it's still unfolding, but it's getting better from where we started.
Interesting. And then, Shola, also, I know that you shuttle between the US and also Nigeria. Can you tell me what some of your hardest decisions are, that you had to make in the early years, and even some of the decisions that you constantly make every day?
Yes, and I'm sure every parent on this call can relate. But I feel like I've had to turn down jobs that would take away sufficient time for me to spend with supporting my child. They're jobs I've had to turn down. I wouldn't advise any parents to do that now in hindsight. That was me, about 10 years ago. I've drastically cut down a lot of socializing. My older daughter specifically has a lot of sensory issues around crowds, noise, people, and it's made it really hard. It's something we're struggling with as a family, but we're still trying to find a way to be able to move together as a family. But it's affected socializing. It's made us more insular. But we're learning how to build our tribe, people who can understand, people we can feel safe with, create our own activities around people. I think also, our budget has become very lean, because we're always counting how much money we're going to spend towards therapy, towards healthcare, towards, our lifestyle has drastically changed. But one thing I can say for sure is that I have learned to trust my instinct as a mother. It was something I doubted at the beginning, and I think it's something that comes with experience. As the months and the years flow by, you start to just be more confident about your choices, because the specialists will help you, people will tell you things, family has their opinion, but you know your child and you know what the struggles you're going through. So I've given up a few things, but I've gained more confidence as a mother in raising my child. So
I like what you said about, even though you think you've given up so many things in terms of social interaction for yourself and all of that, I like that you've been able to find the confidence within yourself. And I think I can relate to that, because I know that from when we first initially got my, the diagnosis, I was a mess. And then I made lots of mistakes that, because again, you were navigating a terrain that we were not familiar with. And then just like your child, my son had issues, sensory issues, still does, but I mean, it's been well managed. And so, but I think the luck I had is that I have a very, very large family, and he has siblings. He had cousins that are within his age bracket, so it was able to socialize within. So it was more like his best friends are his cousins. So they would drag him out to do stuff. They would take him. So it would even, he would go for sleepovers. And I think along the way, I learned to prioritize making sure that I have a carer. Before I used to want to do it by myself, because I used to say to myself, oh no, they can't do it as best as I can. They can. But I learned to understand that if you find that one person that you can trust, or you need, I learned to let go of some things that were not within my control, and allow, so I stopped, trying to make everything perfect. I think that's the word. And then just allow things to, unfold naturally. And for me, that has helped me to grow. That has helped me to be freer. And I think seeing a different part of myself now, I'm becoming more social, and I'm no longer a shell of myself. I see people and then they say to me, oh my goodness, there's a big transformation. And I'm like, yeah, because I've learned to trust my instinct, just like you, and know that there are times when you just have to let go and let others, in. And letting others in has really been very fantastic for me.
Yeah. Okay, so I wanted to just really throw in there, Adiola raised a very good point when she talked about one of the, and this is around the stigma around Nigerians, and I think it's something we have to embrace and deal with, is the fact that there were even affluent families that she met over there who did not get their children diagnosed. Because it's easier to hide the child and say, in our society, you don't want people to know, so you don't get the support you need, because it's easier to send them to grandma in a faraway village, keep them at home and get home tutors. And then you go to the US and people are like, wait, what? This child is 13 and you're just getting a diagnosis? And of course, in that society, you're held responsible. So the state and the community owns the child along with the parents. So they question you and say, why is your child just getting diagnosed at 13? Why did intervention not start? Well, it's concerning that that's the growing trend, like Adiola said, that Nigerians are moving abroad, thinking that everything would be fixed because they moved abroad. And abroad people are like, wait a minute, child is 13. Why are you just getting a diagnosis now? Why are you just getting intervention? And I think it's something that should be part of even some of our parent training conversations, is there's nothing to be ashamed of. A child is autistic. It is not a disease. It is not a curse.
It's not a death sentence.
It's not a death sentence. And the more we have groups like this where we're able to normalize, children having autism, have the support groups where we talk freely about the challenges that comes with it, I think the better it will be for parents to not wait too long to get intervention. I see Diola's hands raised. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just quickly want to chip in this, and I will not forgive myself if I don't share this one. I think when you asked the question about what the decision I needed to make, I want to tell parents that be open to be vulnerable. The vulnerability, it's okay. Because I know normally, as parents, we want to hide ourselves. We want to like show to the society that we are capable. You don't have to all get it, figured out. Be vulnerable. And that example came up when we had to travel, like when we were relocating from Canada to California. We flew, obviously. And when we go to the plane, my girl, she loved to sing a lot. Some of them will have different aspects. Some into singing, drawing. Our own aspect is singing. And though she was really singing out very loud in the plane, and it was a huge American airline plane, and she would not stop. And you know what she was singing? What a friend we have in Jesus. A Christian song in a plane where we have people with different religion, people who know God, who doesn't know God. And one American lady saw me and said, did you not train that child? Right there. So it was an embarrassment in the airplane that I did not train my child. And I said, you know what? I've tried to tell her to stop, but she cannot. She was like, whatever, get it fixed. So that was a moment of vulnerability for me. I wept for the first time. I accepted that, yes, welcome to the journey of autism as a mom. Yes, welcome in the public, right? But as the plane, as the journey went on, she realized that my daughter was doing all that stuff, and she realized that, oh, definitely this child is on the spectrum. But you know where the catch was? She also has a daughter who is autistic. So you will think she should know better. No, she did not. She came with the game of, you did not train that child. Despite she knows that these are the signs and symptoms that is peculiar. So the main fact that all parents have children with autism does not mean that. I'm just telling parents that be careful, right? Because you need to look out for your safe space and be open to vulnerability. Don't feel bad if it doesn't look perfect in the society. Because, like I said, I keep using the word, it keeps unfolding, because you will meet emotions that sometimes you will question yourself that, do I handle this in unexpected situation or place?
Yeah, thank you, Tiola. I mean, as you were talking, I remembered some of the stigma that has plagued me in different parts, and then you think that with all your exposure, with all your advocacy work and all of that, should you still be getting stigma? Should you still be breaking down in public and crying? But yeah, this still happens to me. This still happened to me last year. So, I mean, yeah, it's very, very important to be reminded about that. So quickly, because I know we are running extremely out of time. So, if you could go back and whisper something to yourself on the day you got your child's diagnosis, what would it be? What would you say to yourself, Jella?
So with the question again, I couldn't get that. If you could go back,
I said if you could go back and whisper something to yourself on the day you got your child's diagnosis, what would that be? What would it be? What would you say to yourself?
I think I would say to myself that I've not done anything wrong, because it was a blaming game that I did something wrong. You know how you call yourself the refrigerated mom, like a refrigerator mom, where you think it was because of what I did that made the child to do this, right? Because I started thinking of what I did before, doing, and after pregnancy that I could have avoided. So if I have the diagnosis again, I would say, well, life has brought its challenge. The first thing is for me to accept it and begin to look out for the support, because having the good mindset will give me a good coping mechanism and make me to focus on what needs to be done, instead of me blaming myself, blaming the people around me, blaming the family and even my ancestors. Maybe my ancestor had it and they passed it on. So genetics, so I will go out of that blaming game and face the reality and get the support that I need.
Awesome. How about you, Shola? What will it be?
Okay, I'm gonna be a little long-winded on this, but there's a poem I like by a lady called Emily Pearl. So she's one of the original writers of Sesame Street, and it's called Welcome to Holland. And I always tell every parent to go and Google it. And it's some person that's supposed to be flying to Holland, and they've learned the language, they've learned the culture, they've bought all the clothes they need for that vacation, and they're so excited. And when they're about to land, they tell them, they're landing in Italy. And the person's like, okay, but Italy, he's confused. He wasn't planning to go to Holland, but he ends up in Italy. But then Italy is still a great place, right? It's not Holland, but he has to now learn a new language, learn new foods, new people. And, she was the mother of an autistic child as well. And for her, just saying that journey, you're expecting a healthy baby with no issues and everything. And, the baby's born, and the journey, you're prepared for one journey, and autism presents a new journey. Now, that journey is still an amazing journey. It's just not the journey you planned for. And so for me, that poem has stuck so much to me. And I would say for every parent that we need to give ourselves permission to grieve, because you're grieving the fact that this journey you had planned for is not the journey that you're ending up with. And so once you're done grieving, because I grieved like 2 years, the first 2 years, the cries just never stopped. You grieve for however long it takes, and then you believe in yourself, you rise, and you embrace this new journey. I also say trust your instincts. I mentioned that before. As a parent, you're going to hear all kinds of criticism from family, from friends, everybody has an opinion about how you should raise your child. And trust your instincts. In the end, listen to that voice in your head. You know your child, you more than anybody else. And then I would say also, it's about progress and not perfection. So they are going to make their pace. There's something my father told me when my daughter turned 2, and I remember weeping and crying to him about the progress she wasn't making. My dad was like, you cannot rush the sun to shine. And I never forgot it. He said it in Yoruba, and then he said it in English again. And he's like, the sun will come out and it would shine at its time. He's like, she's going to shine, not at the time of all her cousins or her, but at her time. And so if you remember that, whatever progress your child makes, they're shining at their own time, and they will shine. They may not do everything everybody else is doing, but they will do what they can do. So those would be my words for every parent. This is my 12-year journey on this, being a parent of autistic children. Those would be my advice to my younger self.
Awesome. Like, as you were talking, I was just like thinking, and everything was just resonating in my head, because I really like what you said when you said your dad said that thing, you cannot rush the sun to shine. And I just, it's kind of sunk in. I mean, I know it, and funny enough, I know that proverb, but you saying it, just, I just had like a complete flash, when we were struggling with, will he ever even have conversation? Will he even ever have this? Will he ever... a lot of people will say, oh, I remember when my child said, I love you to you for the first time. But I can't even pinpoint the day Priya said, I love you to me, because he said it, and it's something he says regularly now, that this was a big challenge for us when he was 2, 3, that I would cry and cry. And then, you will listen to other people say, they've heard, I remember the day, or you saw those nice cute video of a child that is autistic, and then comes, and then the mom will say, oh, the first, and then I will cry, and then I'll be like, and then this is the person that's telling me the other day that I said I want a cup of water, like in a demanding tone, and I said to him, can you please be polite? And then I stopped to think to myself that, am I the one asking for mannerism in it? Someone that, so again, for me was what you said, which is you cannot rush the sun to shine. I was there crying a lot, but it would shine, it would grow up, it would come into himself at his own pace, as long as you keep sowing into it. The point is, you can't say it will come into it and not put the right things in place. So to my younger self, if I could say, because I remember that just like you, I cried a lot. The day I got my diagnosis, I was alone with my son in the hotel. We went to a hotel room, and for 7 days, the door was locked. We're just there. He was watching Scream, and he was just crying. I was wailing. But I remember that after my, time in that hotel room, I came back to Nigeria stronger. I was a different person because I was ready to take the move and, do the work that was ahead of me. So to my younger self, I would say it's not a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon. And having the right tribe surround you would make a whole lot of difference. So that's what I would say to my younger self. Yes. So
Fantastic.
we have come to the end of this wonderful conversation. I hope it was what you thought it would be, Shola. Was it?
Absolutely. I enjoy just exchanging the stories with you and Adiola, and hopefully I hope that it has helped empower some parents on the journey. We would love to have more of these to just share and have more, parents and specialists come and just share experiences, because it's definitely helped the three of us on our own journey. So, Adiola, what do you think?
Yes, there is power in storytelling, right? And out of storytelling, you'll begin to get the strength that you're not alone, right? We might not, have exact journey, but it's similar, right? But knowing fully well that you're not alone, I'm just drawing a lot of, power, a lot of strength, irrespective of our geographical location. So more of this, actually, because we need more of this to, for people to know and help with awareness that they have not done anything wrong. You are not a refrigerated mom or refrigerator mom, as they call a mom that is cold, right? You have not done anything wrong, but it's just that the nature trusts you so much with these special children that you can do it and you will do it.
Awesome.
Yes.
Salate, over to you to round up. Thank you so much, everyone.
Yes. So thank you, everyone. And Maya, yes, it was Maya that sent the message. So Maya, what you can do, I think Shola has put up a message where you can send a direct message to Bloombody, and all of these your concerns will be addressed appropriately. But thank you so much, everyone that has joined in. And we would let you know when the next Fire Chat is coming up, and we hope to be able to have more people, more audience. But it's been fun, it's been amazing, and au revoir.
Okay, I was a dude. Thank you for